Okay, we're at Star Wars Fan Days with David Acord, Matt Wood, two of the sound wizards of Star Wars. Wizards. You guys are so wizard. You are so wizard.
Steven Sansweet's mocking us.
And also joining us is the Godfather,
crazy old wizard.
The Godfather of Star Wars sound design.
Yeah, right here.
Ben Burtt. How's it going, Ben?
It's going fine.
It's a pleasure to meet you, finally.
Well, I'm elusive.
I've been a big admirer of you and your work for so many years.
Thank you.
So many years. You've actually made quite an impression on me in my career, getting into radio and stuff. Hey, see, look at this. Matt Wood and David are rolling their eyes, and they're just like, quit blowing the smoke up his ass, Jimmy Mack. But I have to. I gave you guys the same. I gave you guys the same props when I first talked to you. That's how I do it.
You're
okay?
over it now.
Okay, so, well, let's just, let's start at the present and work our way back. And let's start with the Blu-ray release. Ben, you were brought in to consult and help out with the new audio mix.
Yes, right. Well, they were doing the legwork and all the forensic kind of things, but there was a need to go back and make sure that everything that was done in the new remastering was consistent with or totally accurate with what we had done years ago. We were obviously shooting for the highest possible quality, so the idea was always to go back and find original recordings of dialogue or effects, music, where we could know we could improve the technical quality. And so I was the only one with a direct memory of the original, process. And so I was obviously consulting on it as we went along to make sure that it didn't stray off into some, too far to a new direction.
Gotcha.
Which, of course, it wouldn't have anyways. These guys know as much about it, if not more than I do.
And, of course, George has his fingerprints all over it, too, right?
George is always revisiting the films, as we know. I always think the attitude he has is it's like a garden. He can go out and tend it, and plant some new flowers and add to the design, and so he's always open, coming in with ideas for things he wants to add or modify, so we're there to help him.
And it's gone beyond just tweaking it so it looks modern or sounds modern, but there's actually editorial changes being made.
Yes.
Which get talked about a lot.
People saw the films at different times in their lives. And there were different mixes through the years, for video cassette, for Laserdisc, for theatrical. And depending on which version people first saw and fell in love with, they have a memory for that. Yeah. And all these differences we've tried to equalize now and get the content to be there to satisfy everyone who has a particular memory of the film, as well as, doing what George Lucas and what we want to see in it as well.
Now, you guys did this current sound mix. You did it a number of years ago, didn't you?
It's built over time. It's, Ben did a special edition in the late 90s, and then in 2004, Acord and I came on to make it for DVD, and then 2007 they thought they were going to do the high definition release, and then that kind of evolved into 2011. So it continually evolves and gets improved upon, we hope.
There's one change in the dialogue I noticed, and nobody's really talked about this. And it might have switched back and forth over the years with the different releases of A New Hope, is when Aunt Beru says to Luke, tell Uncle, and then now she says, tell your uncle.
Yes. That was an area where we had to go through and find the original sound rolls because the original audio files the original audio had degraded from the magnetic film, so we saw that there was a cut in there where the word "your" was taken out, and we didn't see any reason why it was taken out, so we put the original take back in, and it flowed better.
So you had the master, and there was a splice in it.
Yeah,
you saw the splice.
I
could hear the splice actually.
Yeah, it was actually there was a splice in there, so we just took the splice out and we put the original performance back in.
That's one I just picked up.
A few little ones like that, grammatical things, or
that one kind of went under the radar.
There's like that whole Luke, I am your father. It actually was I am not your father, so we put, no, I'm kidding.
No, wow. I was like, what's that? What are you saying? I am not your father. Wasn't the original script that said something like ObiWan is your father?
Ben would know that. Ben would know because he has the episode. He has the Empire script, the original script.
Yeah.
And I think there was something different in there.
Well, Ben's signing an autograph right now. So let's talk about the big change that gets talked about a lot. David is the crate dragon scream that ObiWan does to scare off the Sand people.
Correct. Correct.
Now it's much more human sounding.
Correct.
Is that either one of you guys making that scream?
It may or may not be either one of us.
Sound effects from the Skywalker Sound Archives.
It's a sound effect from the Skywalker Sound
There's a
Archives.
book called The Sound of Star Wars that might talk about it more.
The original sound effect was replaced for the 2004 DVD, and I think you recognize more animalistic quality to it. And then Ben Burtt designed a newer, more human-sounding effect for the current release of the movie.
The current release.
Right. Which does involve some human voices with people that you know personally.
That I know personally. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. And I mean, other audio changes that haven't really jumped out to people. Can you think of any that people really haven't been talking about?
Good old Indiana.
You know, like the Amperu thing. Yeah.
There's things actually in New Hope. The dialogue was cleaned up so much for the Blu-ray. It sounds so pristine now. One of our editors, Cheryl Nardi, spent many weeks going over the original quarter-inch production rolls. We found this trunk in archives that was full of all the quarter-inch production rolls, and it was untapped previously for the other incarnations. And we transferred everything, and it sounds just as clean and clear as it would have when it was originally recorded now.
Wow.
And it's amazing. And I don't think anybody's really talking about that. It's particularly the scenes with Peter Cushing and Princess Leia and Darth Vader before they blow up. Alderaan. There's that whole dialogue sequence there sounds so much better to me now.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's like your trained ear, you know. I mean, the normal person probably might not pick up on it.
I bet if you A/B the two versions, you probably pick it up.
Play them back to back.
Sure.
Well, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that on the Forcecast.
All right.
And we'll let our listeners decide.
Yeah.
So that's great. I mean, the cleanup work you guys did on the Blu-rays has just been absolutely outstanding.
Oh, cool.
The way the sound is married with the John Williams score, it just it's got just a perfect feel to it. Really,
Oh,
I think the balance is really been nailed for this particular release.
Good.
And it's shocking. David, I'm not sure if I've ever asked you, what is your favorite all-time Star Wars sound effect?
Favorite sound effect? You know, I kind of go back and forth between the Millennium Falcon and the TIE Fighter.
Oh, the Millennium Falcon's a good one.
It's just got that sort of hot ride. You know, it's so Han Solo, that effect. But the TIE Fighter, I mean, it doesn't sound like any spaceship you've ever heard. You know, it just sounds so wicked and so evil. It has that sort of scream built into it.
Is there an elephant incorporated into that sound?
Into the TIE Fighter sound?
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
There's something I'm hearing. It's truck tires going on, I think, wet pavement.
Yeah.
See, this is a question.
This is a Ben Burtt question.
This is a Ben question,
Yeah.
so I should ask him. But,
absolutely.
But yeah, someone told me that there's an actual elephant sound incorporated. Now Ben's busy talking to a fan right now, but I have two questions I need to ask him now. So I got to keep track of all this.
Okay.
We're gonna ask him about the TIE Fighter sound.
Yes.
And then what was the other question? The script for Empire Strikes Back, the "I Am Your Father."
What's your favorite sound effect?
That's a good question. I've always liked the probe droid sound.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think that one is. Yeah.
He had a couple questions for you, Ben. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Ben, just in conversation here, we were talking about the original script for Empire Strikes Back, and I was wondering, since it was such a big secret about the reveal of Darth Vader, Luke, I am your father. Was the original dialogue "Obi-Wan is your father"?
Yes.
I thought I heard that really was.
Right. The script that I always got an advanced copy of the script so I could go through and chart, what we might need in sound effects, and that it was such a secretive, bit of information that it was not in the scripts they gave even the crew, of course. And my script read "Obi-Wan is your father."
Yeah,
that's what it said in that line. But later, during post-production, the true dialogue came out. You know, they had their colored pages that are different from everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's what was really going to be said. They were trying to protect that obvious vital piece of information so they could use it for a maximum dramatic impact.
What a huge reveal. There's a video on YouTube, I don't know if you saw it, but it's a little kid watching Empire Strikes Back for the first time, and his dad is got the camera pointed right at his face, 4 years old. And when the line comes, "No, I am your father," kid's mouth hits the floor, and then you just see this realization wash over him, like, no, I did just hear that, you know, and it's just a classic moment. It really captures that sort of shocking feeling we as the audience had, you know, back then. That must have been a huge secret to keep quiet back in the day.
It was a secret. Even when we had it put into during the latter parts of the mixing, when that line was put in there, we all were like that little kid.
Yeah.
We were like, oh my gosh, it changes everything, was how it kind of felt. And I even felt in the back of my mind that, well, is this going to work? Is an audience going to buy this? Because Vader, up to that point in history, was just the ultimate bad guy. And, you know, you couldn't possibly think of a combination, you know, having this family linkage between Luke and Vader. So it was a big shock for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I think of all-time great movie moments in sound, I think of the helicopters in Apocalypse Now. I think of in Saving Private Ryan when they stormed the beach in Normandy. And I think of the pod racing scene in episode 1.
Sure.
Where that really, the sound carried the entire sequence, all 12 minutes or whatever it is of it. That must have been a particular challenge for you to put that together.
Yeah, the pod race, I mean, it came years after we had done the speeder bike chase or the minecart chase in Temple of Doom, and I kind of love these moments where we have 3 or 4 minutes or more of just sound effects, almost only sound effects, no music, very little dialogue, and it's a chance for the sound. It's a chance for the sound to be as tell the story as upfront as possible. So we always put a lot of detail into it because we know here's a chance for our work to show off, I suppose. A big challenge. We always, as sound people, we love the sequences like the pod race because they are an opportunity for the sound effects to really play a starring role.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's always minimal dialogue, no music. It's we go nuts when there's few opportunities we get like this. And so everything in the book was kind of put into it. Airplanes, cars, racing boats, every engine that we could, pull out of our library, or Matt was out recording things, cigarette boats and drag strip trucks with all kinds of big engines. And so all those revs and motor sounds and pass-bys, we were able to take...
Unmuffled Ferrari.
Yeah, unmuffled Ferrari. We were able to take them as they are or manipulate them in some way, change the speed, maybe run them through some reverb and add some phasing or something to make each pod racer distinctive.
Yeah.
So that as they went by, zooming, if just a few frames of each one goes by, you'd still get a distinctive moment of each one being different and
Definitely.
articulated.
They each get a personality.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Which is so true.
Yeah.
And Matt, you recall working on that sequence as well.
I sure do. That was one of the first things Ben had me on assignment to go record stuff.
And so why is it important to go out in the field and get unique recordings as opposed to using an existing production library?
Well, if you have the time and budget to do it, that's always, you just get something in the field that you're never going to expect to get, and it just brings new ideas, basically.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. If they go out and you get something we've never heard, then suddenly I'm charged up and I say, that motor sound will be, it's of a quality of something we've never had before, so that gives me inspiration to turn it into something else. And
it does really ground things in the real world, too, and make it so you can customize it to fit all your needs.
Well, there's an illusion in the films, an audio illusion that takes place if we draw our sounds from things around us that are real, like these motor sounds and vehicle sounds, then and we change them just enough the audience can't quite recognize them for exactly what they are, but they do recognize it as being authentic in some way.
Right.
And that sells the credibility of these futuristic or fantastic vehicles that we invent sounds for.
And one of those vehicles, and I was just talking to David about this earlier, is the TIE Fighter. And I was just wondering, and I know that you covered a lot of this in your incredible book, Sounds of Star Wars. And I want our listeners to know that is essential reading when it comes to Star Wars production.
It's on your college reading list, yeah.
Absolutely. It is. It's Star Wars Sound 101.
Yeah.
And I believe you reveal all the ingredients that went into the TIE Fighter sound. And I'm trying to recall, was an elephant incorporated into that?
Yes.
There was an elephant.
Yes, there was an elephant. There was actually an old recording that I started with from the 20th Century Fox library, because that was a Fox movie, and I loved old sound effects. And when I was doing the research for Star Wars, and they said we could come down to the studio and go through our old collection if you wish.
Yeah.
And of course, I'd never say no to an archaeological dig in somebody else's library, because
That's
I
so
knew there
cool.
were the things in the Fox library that are of interest. One of them was the sound of these elephants that were recorded originally for a movie called Roots of Heaven.
Okay.
It's an Errol Flynn movie back in the 50s about Africa and elephants.
Wow.
If you see that movie, there's a big elephant stampede, but now it sounds like they're TIE fighters. But I originally made that sound. I took the elephant sound and made it into a laser. It was supposed to be the sound of a weapon.
Wow.
One of the laser cannons on the Death Star. And it was there. But when I did the first temporary edit of the gunport sequence where the TIEs attacked the Millennium Falcon, I was tossing sounds in just as an audition. I'd every time a TIE fighter went by, I'd put a different sound in it, a different jet or a airplane, and then I put that elephant roar in it. And when we screened it for the crew, they all just stood up and said, "What was that great sound? That one shrieking, moaning sound." And that's pretty much sealed its fate as the TIE fighter.
Yeah.
But it was mixed with a sound of a car going by in a wet street with all the swooshing of the water.
Yeah.
As it went by, I was bored one day. I was up recording some animals at a motel in near Seattle, and it was raining, so I couldn't go outside. So I just put my mic out the window and let cars in the street go by, and I recorded them. So it was a combination of those things.
Wow. Just a rainy day in Seattle.
A rainy day in Seattle helped out. Later, we recorded some other elephants and horses, actually, which we started using in Empire as variations on the TIE Fighter sound.
Oh, so there's several different...
Yeah, there's some different versions of it. When we got what we call the chili ties and the ties with two fuselages and things like that.
The TIE bombers.
The TIE bombers, right. We started adding and making them, using that same principle of a scream, an animal scream in there, but some cases it was horses. Some cases it was other elephants that we went out and recorded fresh on our own at the Oakland Zoo.
And David, do you find yourself going out with a recorder still to pick up new sounds for the Clone Wars?
Not as much as I'd like, but yeah, you do. You have to. Otherwise, it starts to sound a little stale after a while. You have to kind of keep it fresh.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I didn't know all that stuff about the TIE Fighter.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you know what? You should read Sounds of Star Wars.
What's that?
Maybe you should get caught up, young man. We got to school him. No, I listen. I don't think anyone could school you guys. To me, you guys are
I don't know about that.
Cream of the crop when it comes to this stuff. And I've always had a very keen ear toward listening for the sound effects. And when I think it was early 90s. I just started going through the films and trying to isolate all the sounds.
Yes.
And, with analog, of course, I had a reel-to-reel and I plugged it directly into my TV, and I was just pulling the sounds, trying to get them as
I did the same thing when I was a kid, except it was, Star Trek and Forbidden Planet and so on, yeah.
Now, how would you get the TV output? You just mic the speaker?
Well, originally I started miking the speaker, and then my father, who was clever, actually knew I was so interested in this. He put we soldered a jack into the TV.
Oh, really?
And this is an old, TV with a wooden cabinet back in the 50s.
Old RCA.
Yeah, and I was able to patch directly into the television at that point. Remember, at that time, there was no way to capture anything. No videotape.
Nothing, right.
No DVDs. There was no way I could play a movie back. So if it came on television once every 5 years, they might run, Day the Earth Stood Still or something. I could record it and then play it back on my tape recorder and listen to it in headphones. And that's a lot of my interest in sound effects came out of those experiences of listening to the recordings I made of movies, because I only had the audio, and I could lay in bed and hear the audio, and the imagery would be recreated in my imagination. And that's, I think, all the hours I spent doing that as entertainment led to my kind of sensitivity about the relationship of sound and picture. Yeah, and how sound effects and image go together for something powerful.
Yeah, and here we are all those years later. I mean,
still doing the same thing.
A hobby for a kid, just going out and recording stuff. And you actually used some of those recordings you made when you were a kid in the Star Wars films.
I did a little bit, delved into some of it. Yeah, exactly. My grandfather's shortwave radio and airplanes that I recorded going over my house. Yeah, there's always been a sprinkling of that stuff. I've used it up until even as recently as Munich, a film I did a couple of years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Super 8.
Super 8, that's true.
The train. And
that's
the,
right.
End sequence, the credits sequence.
That's right. We did use some of the effects. That's right, from way back in Super 8. So there's no holes barred here.
Absolutely.
If it's a good sound, doesn't matter where it came from or when.
Do you still walk around with a recording device, trying to capture sounds?
I do. I don't have one in my pocket at this moment, so that's not every day, but I do keep it handy. Nowadays you can keep a little, like a Zoom recorder, a little handheld recorder, so it's handy. And I was just maybe 2 weeks ago, I was in a convenience store to get something to drink, and I opened the refrigerator cabinet with all the drinks in it, and there was this great humming sound. Something was musical almost about it. I realized it was the fans that were in this refrigerating unit. So I went out to the car, got my little tiny recorder, and it's like the size of a cell phone. And I didn't want to ask permission, and I didn't know what people would think. So I just took my recorder, and I went back, I put it in the refrigerator, closed the door, so it was running and recording. Well, I went about the store and did the rest of my shopping, and then casually picked it up and paid for things and left. So I got this great, minute-long hum, which it'll be a force field or something.
Yeah, right.
Who knows what it'll be? Some kind of, levitation beam field, or who knows? That's how I heard it. So I'm always on the alert. I've kind of learned the lesson that if something catches my attention, if it gets on my radar in my everyday life, then I should record it. Because it means I can stockpile it, and it will ultimately be of some use to me.
Well, and that takes me to the lightsaber sound effect, which you discovered just by walking in front of a television set, and it picked up some sort of weird hum on your...
Yeah, that was the buzzing sound because the conductor shield, I had a damaged cable, and it was picking up unwanted noise. Normally a sound engineer would say, well, we can't use this recording, it's got buzz in it,
Yeah.
But I recognized it as something that sounded scintillating and dangerous, and a good element for the lightsaber, so that's what it became.
Yeah. And there's a clip of you on one of those making of specials where you're standing in front of a speaker with a long mic.
Yes.
And waving it around to get that sound. How was that working with you waving it around? Is that just the microphone moving through the air?
I was taking advantage of a scientific phenomena called the Doppler effect.
Right.
And what I was doing was I had already made a steady sound of the lightsaber hum, which was a recording that could run for minutes at a time, just a steady one-level tone, one volume, one pitch. And I was playing that sound over a speaker in a room, and then I was re-recording the sound on a new tape recorder with a microphone that was very directional. It happened to look like a lightsaber, but as you whip that microphone back and forth, since the microphone was moving relative to the sound source, the speaker, the pitch shifts, and you get a pitch shift. The natural thing you get when anything in motion, which has a pitch to it, the pitch shift changes depending on your speed and your relative motion. And that's because I was a physics major, and I recognized that principle. But since I had created the steady state of the sword, I needed to now put the sword in motion. And that was the way of doing it, by re-recording it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's ingenious. And that's how you did it?
Yes.
Starting from the very beginning?
Yes, right. Yes,
that's
exactly.
Amazing.
The idea was, I actually played the sound, because it was too hard to move the sword fast enough, the microphone fast enough, I actually slowed the sound down by 1/2, so it was half pitch, and played it, and I could then move the microphone at as fast as I could, speed the whole thing up, and it made the sound even quicker for the very lightning moves of the lightsabers.
Yeah, when they really start whipping them around. Now, a sound effect that you are very well known for, but it's one you did not create. Do you know what I'm going to talk about next?
I bet you I can tell you what it is. Some kind of scream.
The Wilhelm Scream, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And are you surprised at how that has gone from sort of just a sound effect you use in the beginning, the first Star Wars, and now it's become something of an inside joke that's not even that inside anymore?
No, it's an inside joke that's now become public folklore.
Absolutely.
When I was growing up, I noticed this scream that repeated itself in many different films.
Uh-huh.
And it was obviously a library effect of someone screaming that got its use over and over again. And it was just a kind of a pet peeve of mine to recognize this sort of thing. When I was at USC Film School, another student and I, Richard Anderson, and in fact a third fellow named Rick Mitchell, we all recognized that we had all heard that scream. growing up, and we all saw that it was in a movie called Charge at Feather River, a Western, in which a character named Wilhelm emits that scream when he gets shot with an arrow.
Yeah.
So
You can see the clip of that on YouTube.
yeah, we called it the Wilhelm Scream, or the Wilhelm, amongst ourselves, and we put it in our student film. And then later, when Richard Anderson and I became separate, became sound editors in the film industry, we started putting it in movies just as a one-upsmanship.
Right.
I put it in Star Wars. Richard would put it in Poltergeist.
Yep.
We both worked on Raiders, and we put it in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It became an in-joke between Richard and I for 25 years. No one paid any attention until, I suppose, the internet came along. You had enough people recognizing the sound that could talk to each other that it became, we were exposed.
Yeah.
And the joke was no longer an in-joke. It had come out of the closet, so to speak.
Exactly.
And so now we know it's proliferated beyond my control into TV shows and commercials and video
You
games.
name it,
And
you name it.
I hear it all the time. So it got out of control. Yep. It belongs to the, it's in public domain basically now.
Yeah, right. So it's out of control.
It is out of control. It's
Yeah.
just like...
Do you wish you could take it back?
No, it's okay. I don't use it. I try not to put it in anymore because I feel like it's sustaining on its own. But it is sort of the original thing that went viral. Long before anything else went viral, the Wilhelm was the first bit of digital media to go viral.
True.
I can claim that.
Someone wrote a tribute song to the Wilhelm Scream called "That Calls for Wilhelm Scream."
I've
Have you
heard
heard it?
it.
You have heard it. Yeah.
I've heard the song. I've seen T-shirts. I've gotten calls, letters, as if I created it. I didn't. It's an old sound effect from Distant Drums with Gary Cooper, 1950.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And the Feather River, of course, too.
Yeah.
Why leave Lucasfilm at that point in your career?
Why leave?
Yeah.
Well, I went to, at the end of the last prequel, I had been independent since the mid-1980s.
Okay.
I wasn't really an employee of Lucasfilm in terms of a staff employee. I worked on projects for them, and I'm grateful for that. And I would just work on a project, and then another one would start, whether it was Young Indy or a Star Wars prequel or something. Mm-hmm. So I was tied up for many years there. And when it was over, I turned my attention. I had a nice job offer from Pixar. I went over there and worked for 4 years to do WALL-E, which was a wonderful experience. Pixar is a magnificent company, and I was very well treated there. And of course, the film was a wonderful challenge to anyone who does sound, since it was so sound dependent. And I'm very thankful for that opportunity to work on it. And then when WALL-E was over, I didn't have any other animation that I wanted to do there. So I went independent again, and I have a studio at Skywalker Ranch, which is, and I've worked on Super 8 and Red Tails and, other smaller things that have come through at that time. Mm-hmm. So I'm still working, and I'm not retiring yet, and be looking forward to new projects in the future.
Do you ever find yourself missing those old days in the basement with your reel-to-reel deck, coming up with all those sounds before Star Wars even took off, and you were creating all the voices and dialects and everything? You ever miss those old analog days in the basement?
I do. As always, you miss things. There's a nostalgia for periods of long ago, whether you were in school or you're young and you're starting your career and it's an exciting time. And that's just a natural thing to harken back to that on occasion. I don't dwell on it. I mean, I have plenty of stimulating projects.
Sure.
At the present time, I do kind of miss the innocence of all of that because, like for instance, on the first Star Wars film, we just made a film that would please ourselves.
Yeah.
We weren't thinking about the ratings or the commercial success of it. I was excited to work on a feature, and especially something that was on a subject which I, loved, science fiction, kind of a Western and science fiction combined. And there had been no film like that, not a big budget movie anyways. So it was exciting, and I do miss those times for that. And of course, the memories are sweet too. You forget all the stress and the times that it was pretty difficult. You remember it sweetly. And I'm thankful for the opportunities that George Lucas and Gary Kurtz gave me on that film, because it was the foundation for my career.
Absolutely. And not only the foundation for your career, my friend, but you had a lot to do with the development of being a sound designer on a whole. You and Walter Murch
Well,
the
we
two
were
guys.
at a point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Point in time where sound was suddenly given a chance to express itself in new ways, and Lucas and Coppola and a few others hired people to try to customize and design soundtracks rather than just deal with a library using material that was had been used many times before. And that's created kind of a revolution in the attitude about sound, which I've been carried along with for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And on behalf of Star Wars fans, we appreciate it greatly because it makes all the difference in the world.
Well, thank you.
You know, those sound effects were done with love. They were
There
done
was
with love.
there, definitely.
You can hear it.
Love
you
and
can hear
passion.
it. It shines through. Ben Burtt, a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah. May the force of sound be with you all.
Excellent.
So
Thank
long.
you, sir.